Stay hungry, stay foolish.
As always, thank you to our partners, Zai. Zai is a global fintech building integrated financial services for digital native and non-native businesses. Check them out at hellozai.com. It's no secret that continuous innovation is the key to seizing and maintaining the competitive edge in today's increasingly challenging business environment. Unfortunately, the process for achieving this holy grail of business has been a mystery until now. Today's book delivers a proven system for building relentless innovation into your company's DNA. Our guest, a professor and former dean of executive education of INSEAD, explores the essential practices of many of the world's most innovative organizations and demonstrates how you can leverage them in your own company. You'll learn how to drive innovating in product design and creative use of technology, as well as business activities such as business model redesign, customer service, distribution, finance, talent development, and sales. The big question on the mind of every business leader today is, what can I do to create extra value for my company and the customers we serve? This book provides everything you need to transform your organization into an innovating engine that continually produces new products and processes to generate enormous new value for you and for the customers you serve. It is a great pleasure to welcome the author of Built to Innovate, Essential Practices to Wire Innovation into Your Company's DNA, Bensaou. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
It's wonderful to have you on the show. And behind me, for those watching us on YouTube, I have 2 copies. That means there's a copy up for grabs for you. Just sign up to the innovationshow.io newsletter and you'll be in with a chance to win that book. It's a fascinating read. It's packed full of examples, Ben, many of which you've worked on firsthand, which is very unusual and wonderful because we can dig into some of those examples. And for that very reason, today will be a part 1 of part 2 because there's so much in this book and I'm really eager to share, and Ben has kindly agreed to do a part 2. So today we'll do part 1. We'll get through as much as we can and then we'll get into part 2 the next day. Before we start, there is some important aspects, Ben, I'd love to share and to clarify with our audience. These are useful lenses through which to read the book, and for today, for those people who are listening to us, to listen to today's show. The first is the duality of business between executing and innovating, those engines, the execution engine and the innovating engine. The second is the subtle difference in wording that I mentioned there, but a dramatic difference in reality between innovation and innovating. Perhaps you'll start with that and clarify those different lenses.
Yes, I'd love to. Well, actually, this distinction I use not to make, and I've been, teaching, training, helping companies to implement innovation, develop a culture of innovation. And what I had noticed a while ago is that each time I walk into a room and I talk about, okay, let's do innovation, let's learn about innovation, I found that the word innovation as a noun was very intimidating, especially to, actually to everybody, middle managers, frontline employees. And it was really unsettling. Why was there so much anxiety and fear? And I kind of understood that very often when people were sent to a training on innovation, they had this funny feeling that when they went back, they were expected to deliver something, to deliver a new product, a new service, something concrete. They were expected to deliver an outcome, a result. And then, of course, these things happen almost by serendipity, by chance. I started to talk about the verb. I used the verb. I said, well, let's learn how to innovate, or let's try to be more innovative. And I had this feeling that the tension was gone. And it really puzzled me. And I found out after testing it many times that when you use the verb, and naturally it signifies action, it signifies activities. People understood that when we said, let's learn how to innovate, it was about learning a process. It's about learning some activities where you can actually use tools. And this is something that can be learned. Very often people associate innovation the output, with a genius leader, some sort of founder, somebody who has it in his DNA, his or her DNA. But if you talk about innovating as a process, this is something that can be learned by anybody. So, I mean, this is the distinction I learned how to make, and actually, I use another metaphor that people seem to be receptive to. I think of, and I talk about innovation as like the tip of the iceberg. What you see, the mountain that you see above the water level. And this is the output. This is the iPhones of this world. This is the business models of this world. And what is under the water, what you don't see, is the innovating capabilities, is what Built to Innovate is about building this collective, Linda Hill called it collective genius. And this is what the book is about. It's really about how do you, using a systematic approach, develop those capabilities where everyone can innovate. And hopefully, with the law of large numbers, you're more likely to maybe get an innovation.
Wonderful. And then there's the other framework. Yes, the duality of business.
Of course, if you think about the world that many organizations are facing today, very uncertain, unpredictable, changing rapidly. So it puts stress on organizations and leaders to excel at two kind of activities which seem a little bit contradictory. On the one hand, they have to implement today's strategy. Well, they have to develop and design and deliver products that customers want at very high quality level, on time, at the right pricing. This is the job of execution. And we know, you also get involved in teaching. Business school, consulting firms are spending lots of time training managers to be good at execution. But at the same time, as they're implementing today's strategy, they have to think about the strategy of tomorrow, the organization of tomorrow. They have to excel at rethinking, reimagining the products and services they offer today. They need to think about new offerings that nobody has thought of before. And this is innovating. And this is the role of the innovating engine. So traditionally, you can go around, and we may certainly discuss this later. The book is really oriented towards established firms. It is useful for startups and extremely innovative companies, but it's really for established firms. And very often, these established firms have been designed around execution. They have a very strong execution engine. And for innovation, they have a tendency to rely either on a genius leader or specialized people in R&D. And what the book is about is how do you build an innovating engine that would run in parallel to your execution engine.
You go on to say that now that we've clarified that innovating engine is driven by three key processes of innovating: creation, integration, and reframing. And we'll get into them a little bit later into a bit more detail from some of the examples that you share within the book. But you say to build an innovating engine which will operate in parallel with an existing execution engine, everyone within the company must be engaged in these three processes in addition to his or her execution engine role. Maybe we'll give an overview of these three processes now, Ben, and then later on, if we have time today or the next day, we can give the example of Corsa, an organization that you worked with.
To just track back, the starting point was really this observation that many people tend to think that you need a genius leader or you need to be a startup to be innovative. And that's not true. In the research, and you notice that a lot of the examples I give are established firms. Some of them are century-old companies, and they are able to innovate. How do they do this? Is that they don't necessarily are obsessed by an industry, a huge industry-changing kind of effect, but they're looking for small, important, very often changes that are in unexpected places. And for this, they use continuous innovation. For this, they need to, and this is what the book is about, is they need to create a a space within the organization, a protected space, fully legitimized, where people can innovate. So, and you remember it says that everybody can innovate. So innovation is everybody's job. You can innovate in everything you do, not only in your products or services, but also in your processes, internal processes, external processes, in your functions. You can innovate in HR, in legal. And thirdly, innovating, if we stick to the distinction I'm making, innovating as a process has to become a habit. So for this, you need to create this engine where it's a lot of companies create temporary initiatives that support innovating activities. But what I'm talking about is really creating an engine with its formal structure and some tasks and responsibilities we talk about, some processes that drive this organization, or this engine, as I call it, and it has its own distinctive culture. So the same way that the execution engine typically operates with, broadly speaking, strategy, execution and control and budgeting and reporting in between, the three processes that need to drive this innovating engine as a formal organization are creation. So creation is the process by which the organization develops new ideas, right? And this is done very often by people who are close to the customer and the non-customer, as I will discuss maybe later. And they are the ones who create this raw material for innovation, the new ideas. Then these ideas, they need to be integrated. This is the integration process. This is where the organization connects all of these ideas, connects all the people who are engaged in innovating activities. And it also is the process by which you winnow these ideas, you channel them, you select them, you may prototype them, and some will come out of the process, usually a stage gate type of process, and they are moved onto the execution engine to be implemented. And then the third process for innovating that is important is what I call the reframing process. It is the process by which the organization, as you were saying, is able to implement the strategy of today, but at the same time, question it, challenge some of the assumptions that are made in the firm and also in the industry about what kind of business we are in, who are our customers, what is the value that we're creating for these customers, and maybe we can create value for non-customers. So these are the three processes that are really unique to what I would call the innovating engine.
You mentioned there the organizations that you worked with. You work with a lot of legacy organizations. You use case studies of those. But what I love about this book, and which is really valuable for those CEOs and leaders and innovating leaders who listen to the show, is that you talk about businesses that work in cement, in tire manufacturing, textiles, but also then the great examples like Gore, BASF, Bayer, all these type of organizations as well. But I wanted to flag something on reframing, because I loved how you frame reframing. And I think this is the new normal for businesses. You say, to prepare for the future, every organization has to keep questioning its existing strategy while implementing it, continually challenging the accepted dogma, convention, orthodoxies, and underlying assumptions on which our current execution space activities are based is essential to making change and progress possible. But this is very hard to do during your ordinary daily activities. When you're immersed in execution, you are so focused on following standard procedures as efficiently as possible that it's almost impossible to achieve the psychological distance needed to see the possible weaknesses or gaps or opportunities in those procedures. I thought that was an essential line, because working with organizations as I do and speaking to leaders as I do, this is the big challenge. It's like, well, I'm measured on execution. I'm not measured on tomorrow, but I know it's extremely important. So there's a cognitive dissonance there. It's like a humming fridge in the background that's bugging so many organizations, so many leaders. What have you found with that?
I mean, you're totally right. I mean, I call it reframing. I mean, you could call it purpose, or I don't know if you would say repurposing, but basically, today's strategy is already kind of framed with a purpose, a mission, and this is totally fine. But as the environment changes, the purpose might have to adapt to the new environment, to the new technology, to the new competitive framework. And this is what reframing is about. It's not about kind of questioning today's strategy as it is being implemented, but thinking about how are these changes opening opportunities for a new statement of purpose. And you can see already a lot of organizations are picking up on it. I mean, I give some very dramatic examples in the book about companies that have completely reframed themselves, completely in two different businesses. But you can see already quite a lot of leaders reframing the purpose of the organization to include sustainability, for instance. To include digital technologies, to include diversity. So reframing happens, but I think what I'm talking about is that the reframing is a process in which everybody has a role to play. I mean, of course, the one who enlarges the frame is the CEO, are the senior leaders, who very often when they open the frame, when they reframe, they create new opportunities for people to look for ideas in this new frame. Otherwise, people feel almost like they can't go there. So it's a way to give permission, as I always repeat in the book, is to give permission to innovate. To give them permission to innovate, you have to enlarge the frame. So, I mean, one of my favorite example, and by the way, I want to come back on something you just said, which is really important to me, is that, of course, we have lots of books out there and consultants and and experts and who can tell us a lot about innovation, learning from the most innovative companies. But what I've tried to do in the book is to try to learn not from only the most innovative companies, and of course I mentioned, like you said, about Gore, about Netflix, Amazon, but to learn about the companies that are not necessarily, or the industries that are not necessarily known for innovation. Like you said, in cement, in paint, in tires. This is really about how, if you are on a scale of 1 to 10 on innovation, I mean, it can be useful. I'm not saying that the book and the ideas that you might testify to this can be useful to companies that are on 8 or 9 on that scale. But really, the book is targeted for companies that are around 3, 4, and want to move to 8 or 9. So this is really why I tried to make sure that we would talk about companies like Kordsa. Kordsa, if you remember, this is a Turkish company who makes textile that goes into tires to reinforce tires. And this was a company, and I followed almost for 12 years now, the CEO who single-handedly, starting from scratch, transformed the company, created an innovating engine. And this was a commodity supplier. I mean, you can imagine this is just textile that goes into tires. This was a commodity supplier, competition, one of many competing on price. And with the innovating engine, he was able to transform the organization into one of the most innovative suppliers to their customers. And they supply not only the products, but services and solutions. And not only to the automakers, but now they also enter new markets like the construction market or the aerospace market. So this is why I tried to make sure that we would have companies that can show the way about how you increase your innovating capability. And reframing, the way that Cenk Alpert at Kordsa reframed the company is by saying we're not about just textile for tires. We are the reinforcer. We are a reinforcer. So he created a new frame. Now he was inviting the company to think about all of the ways that the company could develop ideas and products to reinforce not only tires, but buildings. And now they have material on the space shuttle. They had, they work with NASA. And recently, actually, I was talking to him recently. Now he's expanding it. Now he says we are reinforcer of life. So now he's including sustainability. So you can see how each time senior leaders picking up the input from everybody else in the organization, everybody has a role to play in the reframing. He's expanding the purpose. He's opening the valves so that people can, pour new ideas and create new value for existing customers or totally new customers.
We'll come back to Corsa because there's a great example that really brings to life the three processes, the creation and the reframing as well. But the other part is the people part. And when I work in organizations, I'm sure you've had this challenge as well. Sometimes you're like, why is this HR team not here, or the L&D lead? Because they need a place at the boardroom table now, because so much of this work begins with the changing of mindsets, like the reframing of what we do, how we treat our customers. Our customers are actually co-creators with us as well. And you tell us in the book that people at every level within the organization all have distinctive contributions to make at each of these three innovating processes. In describing their roles as part of the innovating engine, you refer to the three main levels of the organization as frontline innovators, mid-level coaches, and senior leaders. And your study on how innovation-centered companies operate has helped you to develop the Built to Innovate framework, the BTI framework. I'll share that framework, Ben, if it's okay for those of people watching us here on YouTube and those watching us wherever they're watching us. And maybe we'll speak over that framework.
The same way that the execution engine has driving processes. I mean, I mentioned strategy, execution, reporting, budgeting. I mean, there are all sorts of processes that are, underlying the execution process. The same way, the innovating engine also has the three processes we talked about: creation, integration, and reframing. And what is important is to recognize that everyone in the organization has a contribution to make to these three processes. Of course, when it comes, like, for instance, if you look at creation, it's natural that frontline innovators will have, let's say, a comparatively bigger contribution to make, but that doesn't mean that senior leaders or middle managers are not supporting or making contribution to that same process. So this is how to look. This is the way to look at this BTI framework. Three processes and three key roles, and everybody has a role to play, a contribution to make to each of these roles. So, I mean, there's the BTI framework is therefore like a 3x3. Maybe a couple notes to make about this. It's not the usual 3x3 that you see in a lot of business school frameworks. I mean, one is that the lines, the horizontal lines actually, or they're a little bit inclined to actually depict the fact that, if you look at it very carefully, frontline innovators have a bigger contribution to make to creation than maybe, the senior leaders, even though they have a role to play. And conversely, reframing, you can see that the space dedicated to senior leaders is a bit bigger. The second thing I would like to highlight also is that the line separating the three roles and the three processes are dotted lines to indicate, one, that the lines between the different hierarchical levels are generally porous, and people move back and forth, and a lot of the innovating activities happen also in teams, and also the processes also are interdependent or interrelated, if I may say. So, how do frontline innovators help with creation? Well, they are really the ones who deliver, who create, generate, if you will, the new ideas, what I like to call the raw material of innovating. And they do this by, as we said, doing their execution job, but at the same time, on a regular basis, spend time in the innovating engine, doing some innovating activities, which very often involve interacting, observing, working with customers. And we'll talk about that later, listening to the silence of the customer, the voice of the customer, and also learning from non-customers. Now, how do middle-level coaches or middle managers help creation? They are the ones who have to somewhat give permission to their teams to get involved in innovating activities. They need to provide support. They are the ones who create the time. They are the ones who give them some training. They're the ones who create some resources for frontline innovators to do their magic, if you will. And at the same time, they are the ones who can review and channel a new idea so that they kind of move forward. The senior leaders have an important role to play in the creation because they are the ones who create the norms and the standards and the incentives for innovators. So a lot of people tell me, we're trying to be innovative. We don't have kind of restriction. No, it's a process like others. There are standards. There are performance targets. There are time limits. So there's as much discipline in innovating as in execution. So the ones who set the standards, the ones who set the norms for creation are the senior leaders, and they are the ones also who give permission and create the incentives for innovating to the frontline innovators. They are the ones who give the rewards and the awards and recognition for the individual frontline innovators when they are successful. Integration, as you can see from the model, the ones who play a very critical role in winnowing, in connecting the dots in the organization between the people, the ideas, and the resources are the middle-level managers. So these are the ones who build this connective process. They are the ones who link also through the stage gate process or through the winnowing process, channeling process. They are the ones who connect the innovating engine and the execution engine. Once the ideas come from the frontline innovators, they go through the process overlooked by the middle managers. And the successful ones, the ones that are prototyped, that are tested and succeed, go into the implementation, execution engine. And the ones who actually cater and safeguard this process are the middle managers. Now, it is not to say that frontline innovators are not helping with the integration process. As innovators, they participate in cross-disciplinary teams. They meet other innovators, internal or external, and actually sharing their innovative practices, their connections, and the customer knowledge that they garner through their activities helps to build this this collective innovating capability of the organization. So frontline innovators are also extremely important to integration process. And of course, this integration process can happen only because, as I said earlier, the innovating engine has a structure, a governance structure with a set of tasks and responsibilities. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. And also by creating a common language. I mean, it can be through the training, it can be through the communication of the senior leaders. So the senior leaders take an active role in the integration process. Now, reframing, as I said earlier, reframing is really very much a big responsibility for senior leaders. They are the one who can put innovation at the center of the corporate strategy. They are the ones who reframe the purpose, if you will. They are the ones who, by doing this, allow everybody to challenge the assumptions, to challenge the dogma. Without permission, very often when I talk to people, they don't realize that if you don't give permission to innovate, people won't do it. people do it, it would not occur to them. I mean, this is how it very often works in legacy firms. So I always kind of repeat to senior leaders, don't forget to give permission. Don't take it for granted. Don't assume that people will understand that you're giving them permission. Give permission. Make sure that you state it. Make sure that you have as I said, a governance structure that supports that. So this is the main role for senior leaders in reframing. But of course, where does the reframing, the ideas of the reframing come? They come from frontline innovators. They are the ones who are poking every day at the established beliefs. They are the ones who come back with information from the customers and non-customers and challenge their boss and challenge and challenge the whole organization. So by being always, in a creative mode, in a challenging mode, like, we always say, think out of the box. We encourage them to think out of the box. So we should give them permission to challenge the box. So they will. And that's how they participate in the reframing process. And of course, the reframing process will not happen if people don't feel secure, don't feel safe. If you come and by the way, Aidan, this is something I was really puzzled because I heard this quite often. Very often I get engaged in a company where senior leaders say, we want to build a culture of innovation. We're not innovative enough. And after a very kind of quick and dirty audit, I realized that that's not true. The organization is quite innovative. And when I talk to people in the front, they just don't feel that their ideas are wanted. They have lots of ideas. I come back and I say, well, you can't be surprised. I mean, your organization is very innovative, but in fact, people don't think that somebody wants their ideas. So you have to create an environment where people feel safe, where people feel that their ideas are wanted. And for this is where middle managers have to, as I call it, give the permission. Again, give the permission. The permission comes from the top, of course, but it has to also be carried through by the middle managers. And for this, we need a fair process. We need a fair process. Without fair process, you don't have trust. People are afraid that their idea is going to be laughed at, or that their idea is not going to be liked by their boss. So this is very important. This is essential to the innovating engine, and to, in particular, to the reframing process, the sense of trust and safety and fair process.
There's something you said there that's really important. It's not just even that, you say people's ideas aren't wanted. There's no medium through which to share their ideas. There's no way to get those ideas to those who make the decisions. But also, in addition, sometimes the organization is doing lots of innovating, but there's no storytelling of that innovating. There's no signposting or breadcrumbing of the information of those innovations. And that can really change how people think about themselves as well. When they know they're innovating and it's spelled out to them and it's like, look, you were the first to do this. We innovated in a process. We innovated in a business model. Those things start to tweak mental models within an organization as well.
Yes. And I think this is very important too, because what we're talking about is really, when we get to this reframing and even integration, it's really very, very cultural. And if you don't mind, I can tell you a story which now I use all the time in my teaching. And I actually happen to have met the manager who inspired me. I think it was in 2002. I met him. He's Japanese. He works for a company called Recruit. I met him in December, mid-December. And let me tell you what happened. I call it the power of thank you, the power of saying thank you. What he had noticed was I had trained him in innovation, and I was curious to know how he was doing and how he was implementing. So he showed me some of the innovations that he has brought, and I was curious. I said, which tool did you use? Which framework did you use? And he said, I didn't. He didn't teach them to his people. That's very different. He didn't teach them to his people. What he did is that he used question instead. He used the frameworks in his head, and then he used questions. And I will mention the two questions that he uses. But what is very important to me is that when he said he had noticed that when his staff, when they were in execution mode, they were accomplishing their tasks. Very often these tasks are very structured. They are very clear. They even know that their boss can observe what they're doing, can use metrics. They have metrics, they have KPIs. So when they are in execution mode, his staff knew that he could tell how well they were doing. But then he noticed when you are in innovating mode, you don't have this visibility anymore. You cannot come and say, oh, Aidan, I think you have an idea you're not telling me about. Right? There's no way a boss can know if his staff have an idea or not. And sometimes people are surprised at the retirement speech, somebody mentioning about an idea they had. And it's like, why didn't you tell me then? So what he started to do in a very subtle way, every time somebody came to see him, he started to say thank you. When somebody brought an idea to him, he would start by saying thank you, because he realized that each time they came to share an idea with him, they were taking a risk, because they could just kind of be silent and never mention about the idea. He would never know. So when they came and volunteered an idea, they were taking a risk. They were effectively giving him a gift. They were making a gift to him. And he told me, when I receive a gift, I say thank you. So from then on, each time somebody came, to him and said, maybe I have an idea, he would just start with thank you. But it's really interesting, because I had this conversation with him recently. Once people started to notice that he wanted their ideas, he was welcoming the ideas. In fact, they understood that bringing new ideas was part of their job. Execution is, of course, their job, but bringing new ideas is also part of their job. And I think this is also an important message I would like to convey with the book, is that innovating is also part of everybody's job, and giving permission, but also making sure that people understand that they are expected to bring innovation. Not that they should be measured on it. I mean, we can come back to who should be incentivized for innovation, but that's a different conversation. But then what happened to him is that people started to flock to his office and bombard him with ideas. And some were brilliant, but a lot of them were not that good. So then he said, I need to do something about this. And then he remembered I had taught him in the book, it's in chapter 2, it's called the value test. And then, as typical of Japanese managers, he didn't kind of impose the framework onto people, like, it's like an authority. What he did is simply asked questions. Somebody would come with an idea. Boss, I have an idea. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really happy you bring me your ideas, but can you help me with your idea? Can you explain to me, why would customers like this idea? Why? I mean, in the book, it's called willingness to pay. Why would customers be willing to pay? So he would say, and by the way, if the person would know, he would just say, well, why don't you go and ask a customer? So you see, in a very subtle way, he was creating this mindset that when you have an idea, you have to think about the value to the customer first. And then, Brilliant. Of course, people would come back to him, and then they would have like this explanation for why the customer would want the idea. And then he would ask the second question, which is, but what would be the benefit to us to implement this idea? This is the value to the customer, the first question, value to the firm, the profit or the value, if it's an internal process, the value to the firm. And what was really intriguing to me is when he explained to me, he kept doing this for a while. So then one day he noticed one person came to him and said, boss, I have an idea and the customer is going to like it because ABC, and we're going to benefit from it because of this and this and this and this. And this is amazing because what he had done, he had created a new language. He had created a new culture, a new norm. He didn't force people. They kind of learned. He created a discipline within the company where, of course, people talk to each other. And they knew that if you have to take an idea to your boss, he's going to ask this. They talk to each other. So I think this is very important in the very important role for middle managers. Again, to learn how to say thank you, encourage people to come with ideas, but at the same time, of course, send them to training. But simple questions to discipline their thinking when it comes to ideas. Primarily, what's the value to the customer? And what is the value to us? I think that can help not only filter a lot of ideas that people, will self-discipline themselves, will not bring to you, but at the same time, when they're going to be looking for new ideas, they'll have the right thinking about it.
Wonderful.
I kind of diverge. This is not your question, but
even better, even better. I was laughing to myself. I was thinking of when my children were younger, and the way you panic is when your children are young, you're like kind of going, bring them to the doctor, bring them to the hospital, and there's a triage nurse. I was thinking of that student, the Japanese manager, and he's like got a triage nurse at his door going, firstly, thank you, but here's the questions. And it almost became that way of being a structure. I wanted to bring it back to something because I'm intrigued by the challenge for CEOs and leaders of organizations. And then on the flip side of that, the innovators within the organizations, to give them the empathy, because I've been that person, and you sometimes are critical of the CEO. Now a couple of things. One was I know as an idea generator, oftentimes when you bring that to a senior manager, their body language and even their language itself. So you come to the office and it's like they're barely looking at you because they're on their computer, and it's like it's kind of like, and then it's like rubbing the neck, which literally is body language for this is a pain in the neck for me. And then it's like the expulsion of air. It's like, oh, here's Aidan again with his idea. That triages me to go, don't bother. But on the flip side, I've interrupted that CEO who's just fully execution mode. And that makes me think that if you zoom up a level, and for example, you mentioned Cordsa earlier on, the CEO of Cordsa at the time was given permission by the chair, by the board, to innovate and look to a new future. So therefore, there was time carved out for that CEO to do that. That's one thing. And then the other is that if you're a CEO, you have so much on your plate. I have so much empathy for so many CEOs. Maybe it's a new merger, maybe it's a new acquisition, but also maybe your business is doing so well at the moment, and the board are like, let's make hay while the sun's shining. Don't be distracted and start to look towards new futures when we have a very, very viable business here today. There's a lot in that, Ben, but I'd love you to give your opinion on that, because this is the challenge.
Okay. Let me mention something. I'll come back to the problem with the CEOs that you mentioned. What I've discovered when it comes to whether you can interrupt, whether you feel legitimate to bring your ideas or not, that in some ways, by formally acknowledging that there's an innovating engine, which means that there's an innovating space, there's an innovating time, create that legitimacy for people to, bring their ideas. This is the time. This is what I tell people: when you're innovating, you're innovating. But when you're in execution, you're execution. So if you come at the wrong time with your idea, you won't be welcome in some ways. So this is why it's very important. Well, first, the senior leaders give the general permission that innovation is important. It's important that everybody is involved in innovation. But then the middle managers have to create that space now. And even I mentioned about the story of Walt Disney, who kind of started this a long time ago by creating even separate rooms for his teams, he called it the reality room and the dream room. So he would bring the same team in what he called a dream room and says, okay, now we've got to find out and generate ideas about new ways to, marvel the world out there and all that. And now you are generating ideas. I call it, let's go crazy. This is a time to do this. And then once the time for innovating, the time and space, and notice now that a lot of organizations create dedicated space, labs, garage, they have all sorts of nice names for it. When you are in that space, it's what I call problem finding. It's about generating as many problems, as many ideas, finding as many new problems to solve for the customer as possible. So when you come out of an innovating meeting, I tell senior leaders or middle managers, never ask the team, what was the result? What did you find? That's when you're in execution. You see, when you're in execution, you put a team of specialists and they have a problem to solve, which means that it's a very conversion process. They have to find the optimal solution. So when they come out of the meeting, you ask them, what was the solution? They have to have one solution. So this is one way to solve the problem, is to say, when you are in execution, you are in execution. Then you have a protected, legitimized, space and time for innovating. And please be as crazy as possible. We want you to be as crazy as possible. So I didn't bring you ideas. I want your ideas at that time, but not in the middle of the execution. A lot of people talk about ambidextrity, but I think if you put ambidextrity at the level of the individual, people can manage this duality to, be with the customer. I mean, even for people who face the customer, I tell them very simple to spend 10 minutes in your encounter with the customer. Take 10 minutes at the end or at the beginning and switch your mind from execution to innovating and listen. Be in, I call it listen mode, not tell mode or not sell mode, but just listen with, like you said, empathy. That's what I mean by, creating that space for innovating. This is a protected space and as crazy as possible. Now, the CEO problem also is a very interesting one, because I still, again, comes back to the original comment that a lot of people think that innovation has to come from the CEO or from, the R&D guys. In the model that I showed, the BTI model, of course, CEOs and senior leaders are expected to steer the company and make it innovative and to come up with brilliant ideas. That's fine. But Build to Innovate is about the engine, and the role of the CEO in the engine is not to come up with the idea. He does that anyway, but is to make sure that the engine can go through the three processes of creation, integration, and reframing. And I think this is a way to say that the CEOs have some sort of a role to create and to nurture the engine, just the way they would create and nurture some other organizational entity in the company.
I wanted to come back to another challenge for leaders. So we said earlier on, so you mentioned about the framework and the lines between each of the lines of delineation were dotted. And you say in the book, the distinctions among hierarchical levels are often porous and shifting rather than rigid and fixed. And it reminded me also of how in a ever-changing environment, in a business environment that changes the whole time, it reminded me of a line that Bob Johansson, who is a director of Institute of the Future, who's been on the show before, he gave me this beautiful line that you need to be ultra clear on vision, but flexible on how to get there. And the challenge there is many people who work in innovation are constantly pivoting, because they're like kind of going, oh, well, the signposts in the landscape are telling me we need to go this way or that way. The trends are telling me, and my nose and my gut are telling me this is the way to go. But you bring that to a boardroom level, and if a senior executive presents that to the board and kind of going, I know last quarter I said this is what we're going to do, but new information has come along and we're going this way. if you do that enough times, oftentimes the board may lose confidence in you and kind of going, this guy doesn't know what he's at, or this girl doesn't know what she's at. And as a result, then you run a risk again of people thinking differently about you. Therefore, at a higher level, and this is some of the trends that I noticed in your book, the case studies, was that the board was the right board to back the CEO and to back the senior executives in the organization. That was a key finding I found from reading your book.
Right. And here I want to come back. Actually, I didn't suspect the distinction between innovation and innovating would be so profound, but this is another place where I think it can also bring some light to the conversation here. What we're talking about, and I don't want to say that it's not connected to innovation. What we're talking about is building an innovative engine. It's about building and nurturing the innovating capabilities of the company, making sure that you enlist and leverage the capabilities of everyone in the organization. So this is not about innovation. For sure, the senior leaders, the CEO have to come up with innovation. But what we're talking about is building capability, competency. And this is where a board can hardly disagree with that. I mean, I don't want to say that it's obvious, but those companies where it happened, that was what it was. People understood that innovation was so critical, so important, that you cannot rely only on a few geniuses in the company. And again, I always challenge people, asking them, what do you do if you don't have them? What don't you do if you don't have a genius leader? Actually, we can think about companies that had a genius leader who is gone or is not there anymore. Did they stop being innovative? No, because you create, an organization that is innovative in spite of the individuals. It is this notion that it's a collective capability. It's a collective genius. And by the way, with the law of large numbers, notice it says anybody, so everybody can innovate. So that makes a lot of people. You can innovate in everything you do. So it's not only in products, it can be in processes. So there's a lot of ideas there, and you do it on a continuous basis. So you increase the sheer volume of ideas, which means that everything else being equal, the probability that you will have some ideas, or out of all these people, you might see a genius emerge, I mean, is kind of statistically increased. That's all what the book is trying to say. Is sure, if you have geniuses, if you have a fantastic R&D capability, of course, this is important. Take care of them, incentivize them, reward them. But what about the rest? There's so much potential. There's so many ideas lying out there, and so much untapped capability. I like to call it capability, not talent. So much capability out there that can help, create new ideas. And now again, we come back to this whole notion. I get also asked sometimes, innovation is an improvement in innovation or not? And my only kind of remark is that, when do you know that an idea is going to be a breakthrough or is going to be a blockbuster product? The only time is when you bring it to market, when you implement it. Before that, it is an idea. So you should try to get as many ideas as you can. That's why I have a very clear definition of what is innovating.
Yeah, I love it. And I've received a couple of emails from listeners to the show, and they say you keep quoting Buckminster Fuller, but it's exactly for this reason. There's nothing in a caterpillar that tells you it's going to be a butterfly. So like you said, how do you know the idea is going to be a breakthrough idea? So many ideas, it's like you need to bet on all the horses in the race in order for one of them to come through and have a winner. And I thought about the CEO there. he didn't condemn the idea, but he asked questions in order to tease the idea out, because none of us really know if an idea is a good idea. You know, my kids are constantly saying things, and I judge those ideas from my own perspective or my own context, which is very different from theirs. So they could be on a way better path than I am. But I wanted to share one thing. I'm laughing to myself, Ben, here. We've about 10 minutes left and we haven't even got past the introduction of the book. So we might be doing a part 3 if you're up for it. But I wanted to I wanted to bring it back to something that you said, which is the CEO saying thank you. And you say in the book that note that the BTI framework, the Built to Innovate framework, does not assume the traditional top-down approach to innovating. Instead, the building of an innovating engine can begin anywhere. It can start with the frontline innovators who generate ideas, design experiments, develop prototypes, and showcase their successes. Your motto for this model of innovation is don't ask for permission, make others jealous. Once frontline innovators in a single department have shown the way with a handful of successful breakthroughs, others throughout the company will be eager to imitate them. I wanted to just hone in on that maybe as a last point that you'd expand upon.
I mean, thank you. I'm glad that you picked on that. Again, this is the challenge of writing a book. Is that I mean, of course, there's a focus, there's a key message, but this is one of those. And you know, I mean, I could belabor the point so many times, but I think the reason why it's a model with 9 cells, 3 roles, 3 processes is exactly for that, is to show that you don't need to have all the cells together to become innovative. You can start at any of these cells. So as I explain in the book, it can be just started by CEOs who, and quite a few examples like BASF or Bayer or even Corsa. It was at a very senior level where somebody decided we need to become more innovative. We need to complement our R&D capability with some engine that leverages everybody. Or you have other organizations where it started because some people had ideas, and these ideas evolved into a project that became a new business. Or it could be simply because senior middle managers are sending people to training. So you can start at any point, and it's not about having the whole model completed. It's just a structure to help people think through how to build the innovating engine. And the bottom line, to come back to what you were saying, is really about making sure that everybody becomes innovative. I mean, I start with a very simple and primitive statement, is that everyone in the company has a customer, whether it's an external customer or an internal customer, right? So anyone can ask the question, how can I create more value for my customer? If you're in HR, you know, how can I create value for employees or for new recruits or for the CEO? So you can ask questions about how to create more value and innovate, in a sense. And I also start with the statement that don't want to come back to the discussion about children, but you know, when you're born, you're innovative. You have a level of innovation. So the innovating engine is about how do you help people build their innovating muscles. It's fascinating to see how people are, excel at their execution role and have so many ideas that they keep inside, and they go home and suddenly they become very creative, taking care of the children, taking care of their community. And it's almost as if they come back to the office and they switch off that innovating capability. So this is really about unleashing that, saying to people, you have permission to express your creative, your innovative side, and we are going to even help you train that muscle. Like you go to the gym and you train your arms or your legs by using equipment. So I have tools people can use to strengthen their innovative muscle. And then if you do enough reps, and if you keep, the program, then you are increasing the innovating capability of everyone a little bit, a notch. And this is what this is about. It's really about not only allowing everybody to become innovative, but helping them to become even better by, creating a training, like a physical training program for them to strengthen their innovating muscle. And by the way, this is also a very important point that I gathered in many of my interviews, is that people enjoy their job much better. People really relish the time when they're going to be going, even if it's for an hour, to visit a customer or to go to a store, a branch, and to just observe. It brings freshness, it brings fun to their job. And this is something that is not to be underestimated, even if they are still measured on execution. I mean, this is not going to go away. But being able to express your creativity, and even for some people feel that you can make an impact on the future, you can influence the future of the company, gives a sense of meaning, a sense of pride that they don't necessarily get out of execution all the time.
I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up today's episode, Ben. We'll be doing more than two, I think. It's like we prepared the soil for the book now, so we've prepared to go on there. Just to say, I call that effect where, say, for example, senior leadership or the CEO may say to somebody, Ben, great job on that. I loved your idea. Well done. And then you do that somewhere public where maybe it's, back when we're in the office again or on a virtual town hall, you might call somebody out. I call that the virtual curtain twitcher effect. This kind of thing where somebody's looking out the curtain and kind of going, what's going on over there? Bensau's got a new car. And it creates this kind of jealousy that you mentioned there. And I found it so interesting that it's the very human elements that can actually drive that change, like the thank you, like the acknowledgements, like the shining a light on some of those people. And it may not be just a brand new idea. It may be calling out some part of the organization, some bureaucracy that you get rid of in order to create new space and new time for people to innovate as well. It's fascinating.
I have to say, because that motto came again from working with people, and I had always this expression that people used to bring, especially in the Anglo-Saxon culture. Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. This is how people who are on the front line were being told about how to innovate. And I realized that why should they feel they need to ask for forgiveness? Why do they have to feel bad about innovating? If you give them permission, they don't need to ask for forgiveness. They are expected to do it. So that's why I changed the motto. I mean, not for frontline people, but for mid-level managers, is to say, give permission to people. They don't have to feel they need to ask for forgiveness. Give them permission. They will astound you. They will come up with ideas that are going to make you look so good. And this is how you're going to make other people jealous. Your other middle managers are going to say, wow, Aidan, your team is got the awards and they come up with so many great ideas. How did you do that? I mentioned in the book, just to make it very concrete, I think it is Allianz UK, who has an innovation league table that they publish on a regular basis, where every unit is assessed in terms of contribution to innovation. So you can imagine there's some sort of a emulation between middle managers of the different UK operations to, at least not be on the bottom of that list, but to be on the top of that list. And this is very important because if you try to incentivize the frontline innovators on innovation, you kill it. You're killing innovation. You're creating so much stress that people will be afraid to innovate. But if the team leader, if the unit leader is incentivized on the contribution of the team to innovation, that's a different story.
We'll get into some of the case studies the next day. We'll share the framework through the case studies. We'll give a little recap of where we were today. And Ben, thank you for joining. I know it's like 10 p.m. over in Japan. Ben is joining us from Japan. He's going on to do a webinar after this show as well, which is why our time is restricted. I really appreciate you putting in the time. Author of Built to Innovate, Essential Practices to Wire Innovation into Your Company's DNA, Ben Bensaou. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Aidan. It was so much fun. I'm looking forward to part 2 at least.
Nice one, man. Brilliant. Merci. Merci bien.
Thank you. Thank you so much.